The Everglades doesn't announce a disaster. It absorbs it. On a warm May afternoon in 1996, the only sounds out here were the drone of insects, the whisper of sawgrass, and the distant hum of a passing jet. Then a roar tore through the air, violent, sharp, and over in less than 60 seconds. And, just as quickly, the swamp swallowed the sound. When the ripples faded, the mystery began. Radar showed a passenger jet had slammed into the Everglades at 507 miles per hour, descending in a nearly vertical dive. But from the sky, witnesses aboard another aircraft said something that made no sense. The jet seemed to disappear. No towering plume, no fiery debris field, just a flash, a shock wave on the water, and then stillness, an eerie return to normal that hid what had truly happened. The Everglades is shallow, only a few feet deep, but beneath it lies limestone bedrock. At that speed and angle, the jet hit the limestone like a hammer hitting an anvil, shattering a 50-ton aircraft into fragments smaller than suitcases before the water even had time to spray upward. 110 people were aboard. None of them knew that only minutes earlier, a chain reaction had already begun in the cargo hold beneath their feet. By the end of this story, you'll see why the crash site itself, not just the crash, forced aviation to rewrite rules that should have existed long before that day. To understand what happened, we have to go back 6 minutes before impact, when everything in the cockpit looked normal. Shortly after 2 p.m., Flight 592 pushed back from Miami International Airport. Engines humming, gauges green. Everything looked normal. Beneath that routine, something was already wrong. ValuJet had outsourced maintenance to SabreTech, where oversight was minimal and corners were cut. Oxygen generators, hazardous, unstable, and mislabeled as empty, were packed without safety caps. SabreTech didn't even have them in stock. Mechanics used duct tape or cut the cords and taped the ends down. No one verified. No one double-checked. The forward cargo hold, just beneath the passenger cabin, had no fire suppression system and no heat sensors. Pilots had no way of knowing that this blind spot had already become a threat. During pushback, a jolt, routine on any tarmac, was enough to trigger the chemical oxygen generators. Temperatures soared past 500 degrees Fahrenheit within seconds. The fire had begun, invisible to the pilots, undetectable on the instruments, spreading silently beneath their feet. In minutes, it would force a choice no pilot wants to face. As the aircraft lifted off at 14:04, everything in the cockpit looked normal. 6 minutes of routine climb, standard radio calls, heading north toward Georgia. The passengers settled in. Flight attendants began preparing the beverage service. In the cockpit, the gauges were green, autopilot engaged, Miami shrinking behind them. Imagine being in that cockpit. Every system quiet, every reading nominal. You have no reason to suspect anything is wrong. But beneath your feet, a fire is consuming insulation and floor panels, burning toward the control cables that let the pilots fly. By the time any instrument could detect it, it would already be far too late. An invisible fire, burning undetected for 26 minutes, finally reached the cockpit at 14 hours 10 minutes and 3 seconds. A sharp bang under the floor, smoke pushing upward. The captain doesn't know it yet, but the airplane has already entered its final 4 minutes. 14 hours 10 minutes and 3 seconds. What was that? 12 seconds of silence follow. 12 seconds where the airplane is dying underneath them, unnoticed. Then the electrical system begins to fall apart, exactly the way investigators would later reconstruct it. 14 hours 10 minutes and 5 seconds. AC bus 1 fails, as fire severs the feeder cables. 14 hours 10 minutes and 18 seconds. The autopilot drops, pitch and roll servos losing power. 14:10:21, 31. Radios flicker, VHF cutting in and out. No lying instruments. Just a sequential electrical collapse, one wire bundle at a time. In the cabin, the fire has already overrun the Class D hold, a compartment designed to starve small fires of oxygen. No sensors, no suppression, and completely helpless against chemical oxygen generators burning at over 1,000 degrees. The flight attendants try the interphone. Dead. Then, 14 hours 10 minutes and 25 seconds. Pounding on the cockpit door. Not a crack, not a gap. The reinforced DC, 9 doors stay shut, but their screams make it through anyway. Fire, fire, fire. The captain begins to turn back. 14 hours 10 minutes and 27 seconds. We're on fire. Most scripts end here, but the CVR does not. 14 hours 11 minutes and 12 seconds. A flight attendant's voice, closer now, raw with pain, completely on fire. The cockpit crew continues to turn, but they're out of time. Control cables routed beneath the floor are already burning through. Seconds remain. Behind the steel-reinforced cockpit door, a post-hijacking retrofit built around a 14-gauge steel core, layered insulation, and no cabin-side emergency override. The cockpit was an island. A sealed, sound-dampened capsule. The screams on the other side were almost completely erased by design. 14 hours, 11 minutes, and 12 seconds. A flight attendant's voice finally cut through the insulation, muffled, distorted, completely on fire. And then, 25 seconds that determined the fate of 110 people. 25 seconds where pounding fists, smoke, and chaos on the cabin side remained nearly inaudible on the cockpit side. The door, once meant to stop hijackers, now trapped the pilots in silence. Inside the Class D cargo hold, the true killer was accelerating. Chemical oxygen generators, mislabeled as empty, had ignited. Their sodium chlorate plus iron powder reaction produced pure oxygen in temperatures above 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, faster and hotter than the hold's oxygen starvation system could ever contain. The fire no longer burned. It manufactured its own oxygen. Wiring bundles failed first. Then the fire reached the aircraft's 1/8 inch, 7x19 stainless steel flight control cables, thinner than guitar strings, yet responsible for pitch and roll. Heat stretched the elevator cables by more than 3 inches. The aileron cables soon melted and parted. Even the hydraulics were fading, pressure falling toward 400 psi, nearly powerless. 14 hours, 11 minutes, and 37 seconds. The captain's voice broke through VHF. "We're on fire." A full 25 seconds after the cabin scream. By 14:12, the aircraft stopped obeying. An uncommanded right turn began. Shallow at first, then tightening as melted cables offered no resistance. The pilots fought until the very last moment, running emergency checklists, forcing dead controls, trying to fly a machine that was no longer a machine. The DC-9 wasn't descending. It was unraveling. The earth rose to meet it. The black water of the Everglades, calm, indifferent. 507 miles per hour, 75-degree angle. 3 feet of swamp over limestone. A deceleration over 100 G. The aircraft disintegrated. The largest fragment recovered was just 18 by 24 inches. Then, silence. Just ripples fading into darkness. To solve this crash, investigators had to outsmart a swamp that was actively swallowing the evidence. When the NTSB arrived, the site didn't look like a crash. It looked like erasure, a 200 by 300 foot patch of churned black water with nothing floating. Recovery wasn't excavation. It was endurance. For 4 straight weeks, teams worked the grid. Airboats dragging tight transects. Hydraulic dredges pumping sludge into settling tanks. Divers probing 6 feet into limestone muck using vibrating poles because visibility was 0. Even the flight data recorder, whose coordinates were known precisely, took 4 days to extract from the Everglades suction. Every fragment recovered, 110,000 in total, was rinsed, dried, labeled, and mapped onto 2D photogrammetry charts, square by square. The wreckage pattern was unmistakable, omnidirectional scatter, consistent with a 507 miles per hour, 75-degree intact impact. No large fuselage section survived. No recognizable cabin. Just metal shards, foam, wiring, and bone-white limestone dust. Then came the smoking guns. Beneath what remained of the cargo hold floor, they found 6 oxygen generators with their firing pins fully exposed. Safety caps missing, never installed. Duct tape still clung to the assemblies. Handwritten SabreTech labels read, "Empty company material." Directional burn patterns traced the fire's climb. From cargo hold, cable pulleys, wiring bundles, hydraulic lines, the cockpit floor. Control cables told the ending. Elevator cables stretched 3.2 inches. Aileron cables melted and snapped. Hydraulic pressure collapsed. The airplane didn't lose control. It lost the ability to be controlled. Black box timing sealed it. A jolt during pushback ignited the canisters. 26 minutes of unseen fire. Cockpit awareness at 14 hours, 10 minutes, and 3 seconds. Total loss of control within 90 seconds. Everglades impact at 3 minutes, 39 seconds flight time. If you had to sift through waist-deep mud for fragments the size of a coin, knowing one might reveal the truth, would you have the patience to keep going? Drop your thoughts below. The swamp didn't hide the truth. It forced investigators to uncover a system that had been burning long before Flight 592 ever took off. Rules rewritten, but only after the price was already paid. Shock demanded change. And still, the industry resisted. $2,000 to $5,000 per DC-9 retrofit. Class D cargo holds have worked for 30 years. Airlines insisted. And the FAA's own leadership echoed confidence. ValuJet is safe. Before the crash, the system ran on paperwork and trust. SabreTech falsified work cards. ValuJet accepted hazardous oxygen canisters mislabeled as empty. FAA oversight. Thin, decentralized, stretched. Missed every warning. Flight 592 forced the reckoning they had avoided. May 11th, 1996. The crash kills 110. June 1996. FAA grounds ValuJet's entire fleet. Summer 1996. A 24-count criminal indictment hits SabreTech, including charges equivalent to pilot manslaughter. November 1996. ValuJet returns to service, soon absorbed into AirTran. May 1997. FAA mandates fire detection and suppression for all Class D cargo holds and bans chemical oxygen generators on passenger flights. These changes also trigger new hazmat training rules, contractor certification requirements, and wiring insulation upgrades across hundreds of jets. But none of those reforms happen automatically. They happened because families refused to let the investigation fade. Pamela Lipton, widow of passenger Michael Lipton, became one of the strongest voices. Her testimony before Congress in 1997, along with other families, directly shaped the suppression mandate and the ban on oxygen generators. Their pressure finally made Washington confront a truth the NTSB had warned about since 1988. Class D cargo hold were death traps, and everyone knew it. Aviation didn't just fail Flight 592. It failed for years before the plane ever took off. The rules eventually changed. The paperwork, the inspections, the cargo regulations, all rewritten because the old system left no survivors to speak for themselves. But while the industry moved forward, the Everglades did not. What happened out there stayed there, and the swamp still holds what little remains. The Everglades hide scars well. When the search began, airboats carved a 200 by 300-foot grid into the swamp, an open wound on the water surface. Divers dropped into 6 feet of dark muck over limestone, feeling more than seeing. Alligators circled, cuts meant infections. After 4 weeks, they had recovered 110,000 fragments, the pieces the swamp didn't swallow. Here, wreckage doesn't scatter. It sinks. Muck pulls metal down like wet cement. Peat acids etch aluminum into flakes, wiring into loose threads. Composite panels soften into sediment. Inch by inch, sawgrass blankets, everything again. Some pieces were never recovered. Not missing, simply absorbed. Yet the Everglades remembers. The same insect buzz that opened this story still hangs in the air. The same sawgrass rustle the pilots flew over in their final seconds. The same deceptive calm that swallowed a jet in 60 seconds and left almost nothing behind. 12 miles south, along the Tamiami Trail, a memorial of 110 concrete pillars points directly toward the coordinates of the impact. One pillar for every life lost. Drivers pass it every day without realizing what it marks. Aviation changed forever because of what happened here. Class D cargo holds vanish from the world's fleets. But in the swamp itself, nothing speaks. Nothing stirs. The Everglades keeps its secrets. Yet what it claimed in 60 seconds reshaped the skies above it forever.